our focus is really on customer discovery and having them understand their customer segments, their ecosystems, and all of that.
On today's GSD Factor podcast, this is a special Get Stuff Done episode. Our guest has been named a 2025 Emerging Leader here in the Nashville area. She guides and connects scientists and their inventions and helps them usher into the entrepreneurial ecosystem, basically helping them go from research to their go-to-market strategy. Our guest today is Destanē Garrett. She is on the amazing Vanderbilt University Entrepreneur and Innovation Center team at the Wond'ry. So let's dive in to the conversation as we learn how she is getting stuff done and helping scientists step into their extraordinary. Destanē Garrett, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty okay. I'm happy to be here. I'm super excited.
GSD Factor podcast listeners, so excited to have you all tuning in. And we are going to dive in with Destanē Garrett, who is part of the amazing Wond'ry team at Vanderbilt University's Entrepreneur and Innovation Center. But before we do, Destanē, tell our listeners a little bit about your story.
Okay, where to begin? Born and raised in Southeast Louisiana in the New Orleans area. I spent most of my life there so my Nashville journey started in graduate school. So that was the first time that I ever left home. And it was quite the journey and the culture shock, honestly, because even though Nashville is still very much the South, it's different. I don't know how familiar you are with like New Orleans culture, but people generally the degrees of separation are like maybe 2. You never know who you could be talking to, who might know your family. And so you always want to greet everyone, And when I came here, would smile, say hi to people just randomly on the street, people would look at me like I was crazy. So I was like, okay, all right, a little colder here. That's fine. And so I just got used to that. But also I came here for school. So I got my master's in biology at Fisk University. And I also, while living here, went from having all of my family, because I'm 8+ generation East Louisianian, New Orleanian, to having maybe 3 family members total. And so being on my own, I think officially for the first time, as an adult, was just okay, I got to get used to going to stuff by myself. I got to get used to going to restaurants, and sitting by myself and going to the movies by myself and all of that. And so I like to say I have a fondness for Nashville in my heart because it's where I established my independence. And to continue with that independence, I continued school. So after I graduated with my with my master's at Fisk in biology, I started at Vanderbilt University in their PhD program in biological sciences, and I was focused on ecology and evolutionary biology. After about 4 years into that, there started to be a lot of issues going on with my personal life in terms of family. And so I was frequently between Nashville and New Orleans. Then the pandemic happened, and that really put a strain on trying to travel, be there for my mom and siblings and all of that. And so because of what was going on, I just realized that it wasn't really a good time for me to be fully focused in my studies. So I chose to earn my master's instead of continuing with my doctorate. So I now have 2. I got my second master's in 2022, also in biology at Vanderbilt. And so then I was like, well, what am I going to do? I love talking to people about Spanish. What? I love talking to people about science, and communication is something that I've always been super passionate about, especially because, like, as a first generation college student, I would often train myself to talk with my family so that they would understand what I was doing, because I knew that if I could talk to them, then I would be able to share my research or share any of the things that I was working on with anybody, no matter like what their level was. And so I wanted to pursue a job or career that would offer me the same sort of communication connectedness and being able to talk to people at various different levels. And when I found the position at the Wond'ry was still available, I was at the Career Center, and one of my mentors was like, "Hey, I think that you should apply." And I was like, "Okay." And got the job. I in it my program coordinator in biomedical innovation. My lab research experience was definitely the pull. Uh, but I did not anticipate that I would essentially be pivoting from just talking science and that sort of, like, as I like to say, talk shop, to this world of entrepreneurship. Uh, and I was like, I felt a little bit like a fish out of water, because I'm just like, oh, I've just been in the lab for most of this time. I don't know if I can really hang with all of these entrepreneurs or people who are like deep in business. So, the scientist that I am, I did my research, tried to look up books, and took all sorts of notes, followed people around on their calls, just so that I could understand the world that I was diving into. And it also helped too that we had a lot of uh, biotech or medical device sort of startups or people who have those ideas. I'm just like, oh, okay, I can really bridge the gap here, because I know the pivot between going from research to entrepreneurship is scary. I was experiencing it myself. So I'm just like, I can be a conduit. I can I can talk to them and really get into like how these things are different, because I can relate to them because I'm experiencing it myself. And so that transition was like, I think helped me be, I don't want to say better at my job, but more empathetic to the ventures and people who I was talking to and trying to help. And of course, been at the Wond'ry for 2 years, so I've definitely got a grasp on this entrepreneurship, sort of educational entrepreneurship, I should say, as a trained regional instructor for the National Science Foundation's Innovation Corps. I can not only talk the talk but walk the walk, and I'm always happy to use my experience or my background, even in science, and translate that over to helping people, not just if they're doing STEM stuff in entrepreneurship, but beyond. That was a very long-winded way of getting into my story, but
I love the narrative, and I think it really sets our stage beautifully for what we're going to talk about today. In that, and we're going to kind of take two paths with you, right? This season is the season is all about stepping into your extraordinary, and the first path we're going to go down is, how is Destanē helping these entrepreneurs step into their extraordinary? Because I kind of consider you to be an amazing guide to them. You have both hats, you have both sides, both the science as well as the entrepreneurship. And so, how are you helping these entrepreneurs step into their extraordinary in the area of science?
yeah. So the easiest way to answer that question is I make them talk to people. We use the lean startup methodology. in order to do our educational entrepreneurship. And our focus is really on customer discovery and having them understand their customer segments, their ecosystems, and all of that. And as I'm talking to people who are, research academia types who might not be familiar with that world, they're used to their uh, stuff being validated through research, through doing the science, and that is all they need. And I have to remind them, be like, no, just because the research backs that, who is going to buy this? Like, have you talked to consumers? Like, have you talked to people in order to validate? Because that's how it works in entrepreneurship. It is not if you build it, they will come. They will not. And, I feel like sometimes it's a little tough love, but I love being able to be that sort of guide from the world because I can relate to them. I can be like, hey, I get it. I get that you're just like, I did all of this research. Why is this not enough? Like, this is what is enough in the world that I come from. And I'm like, it is. It totally is. It totally is. And I understand that. And I can easily transition being like, just imagine, you need to do validation. You need like all of the people that you need to talk to are data points. And just talking to 1, 2, or 3 people is not enough to confirm if this experiment is successful. You have to go out and do your research with people now.
Take our listeners through a quick overview of the lean startup methodology, because I think that that's something that is maybe newer to some of our listeners.
Okay. Yeah. So at least as how it relates to what we do at the Wond'ry, like I said, customer discovery is key. So what that means is like, say you have an idea, you wrote it on a napkin, a piece of paper, or anything like that, and you're just like, I don't really know if this is going to work. One of the things that we do is, you don't even have to have any sort of business acumen or any sort of like that background. But while using the business model canvas, we are like, hey, you have to do this sort of scientific method of sorts in setting up hypotheses or general preconceived notions about why someone would be like your customer. So say you need to figure out if this idea is viable or if people will actually buy it. What sort of questions can you ask in order to know if they would even be a customer? What sort of things can you find out? Well, I'm not talking about your product at all, while trying to get into the pain points that people are experiencing that would actually make them or compel them to be like, I need this solution so bad that I am like, here, take my money, sort of thing. And you're undercover. You're doing that research. You're filling in based off of the questions that you're asking and the segmentations that you think align with the idea that you're pursuing in order to see, hey, this is this target demographic. Hey, these are the channels that I can explore, because not only are you talking to like your customers, you're also trying to use this method to validate through different people within different players within your ecosystem. So talking to distribution channels, like, meeting with the people who actually sell your product and how they even go about selling products, like doing research upon like on that. Talking to decision makers. So say you're doing something in healthcare and you're trying to get your items in like hospitals or clinics. You need to figure out how they even go about that distribution. What's their revenue streams? Like how are they allocating their funds? If they are buyers, how do they even make those decisions to purchase or to go about purchasing? If they're adopting something new, how long does that take? And, just going down the line of understanding everything within your ecosystem by this sort of questioning, by this human centered sort of design of understanding those pain points, understanding the need that people have so that you can essentially get in where you fit in.
What I really like about the methodology and what you've just discussed is you're bridging that gap between I have this scientific discovery or I have this scientific idea, but now how do I get it across that? How do I get it across that great divide to now make it a product that is consumable and people will purchase?
Mhm. Yeah, and that divide to me is the most or filling in that gap is the most fulfilling because, like, seeing people go from, like, really getting into the idea of customer discovery, really getting into, "Okay, what more do I need to learn? Who else do I need to talk to?" And having these questions answered while having new ones pop up. Ugh, the most exciting thing for me is when people are like, "I didn't even expect them to say that. I came in with these like hypotheses because I thought that this was going to be like just a regular validation, or they're going to be like, yes, and this and this. And they said something that completely blew my mind. And I wasn't even thinking about that. But now I got to go down this pathway and figure out where that leads. And I'm like, yes, yes, dig into it.
Your success, you get that you have you see that light bulb come on that they
Hmm.
get it, and then their passion and it continues to drive them. So now let's pivot into what is Destiny and how is Destiny stepping into her extraordinary here this year?
So, one of the things that I'm super excited about is that I was recently accepted into the 2025 cohort of the Nashville Emerging Leaders. So I am super excited to understand more about like talking about ecosystems, Nashville's ecosystem, and understanding like key players within that, talking to nonprofits, talking with the mayor, as that's going to be one of the things that we get to do within the program, and essentially joining this vast array of people who are just like me and different, trying to come together to potentially solve a problem or deeply look at some issue within like Nashville. And I'm so excited to work and like meet new people and to be a part of this illustrious alumni membership. But I'm just super excited to be a part of that, to spread the, I guess, gospel of the Wond'ry for people who maybe haven't heard of it or understand like all the things that we do, and sort of like work that into the conversations that I'm having. And also just like learn outside of, advocating for my job, just understanding the things that happen in Nashville outside of that entrepreneurship track, outside of um that sort of innovation sphere, and just really like digging into the community.
Well, first of all, congratulations, emerging leader. That is amazing.
Thank
And I
you.
hope you take a moment to be present and to celebrate that because that is a huge validation for you of the amazing work that you're doing, not just with your students, but also within the whole ecosystem here in Nashville. So I'm very proud of you. Congrats.
Thanks.
What is Destiny's GSD factor attribute that you are tapping into at the moment that's resonating for you? We talk about within the GSD factor life the 6 attributes of being confident, being inquisitive, being imaginative, being present, being resilient, and being influential. So, what season and attribute are you really leaning into right now?
Being resilient. That's the biggest one. Life comes at you fast. And, rolling with the punches is something that I have experienced. I mean, like, as I was telling my story earlier of, there were really tough challenges that I was going through, like, emotionally during my PhD program. And as I have unfortunately lost family members, with the multiple hurricanes that had occurred within that time frame, like lost some, well, have family members who have lost some property or like experienced damage, that sort of thing, providing like a shelter here in Nashville for them to come to. There's still been so many moments of joy and so many things to like continue to wake up and experience life for, even now, like as things have, of course, like that was a while ago. Stuff that I was going through in my PhD was a while ago, but even now within my life in Nashville, experiencing some hardships, some issues with just not only living space, health, just like that sort of thing, being like, okay, I'm here and I can do this, I can keep going, and getting to share like triumphs, like what we just talked about, like knowing that I still can like make an impact, not just for myself but for others, and having really great people in my life that are so encouraging and so supportive that I'm just like, yeah, I there's no point in me like feeling the spirit of like giving up, because there's so many people who are not gonna let me. And I love
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. And I think in those moments of resiliency, it's finding those small moments of joy, gratitude. And I think, those resilient seasons, you don't always appreciate in the moment when you're walking through them. It's one of those retrospects that when you come out of the other side, you go back and go, wow, I made it. I
Mhm.
went through this and here's what I learned and here's the growth that I had. But in the moment, it's hard to see that. And having those moments of gratitude and those moments of joy and those continuing moments of perseverance and continuing to show up is what gets us through those trying times, and leaning into our support system, and we talk about whether it's the GSD Factor Clan or your Insiders Board, but having those people that you can lean in on that can help carry you during those seasons is so important. Final question. You're riding an elevator with an entrepreneur. What is your piece of advice to them?
Ooh, that is so tough. How long is this elevator? Are we going to the 20th floor?
Sure, we can do that.
Um, well, if I know that they're an entrepreneur, hopefully they'll have already told me, their spiel, and we've sort of like discussed that sort of thing. Um, Other than providing them with like resources of being like, you should come to the Wond'ry and uh not only take our classes or like do innovation open mic, which is a pitch clinic that you have been a wonderful judge on,
Oh,
to
well,
like,
thank you.
of course, to provide sort of like insights or get that sort of like regular practice of pitching. I would tell them, like, don't give up. And like, I know that setbacks are hard, rejection is tough. Being in those meetings with investors or even just people who you're like trying to get like micro grants for, or like having people judge something that's so near and dear to you. You're like, how will they not accept my baby? Is It's tough. And I think that taking some of that on the chin and pushing through will make you even stronger, make what you're doing or like what you believe in even stronger. And you don't forget your support system and also your new support, because hopefully I will have plugged the Wond'ry so that they're just like, oh yeah, they seem like they could be helpful to me. I need to join that like ecosystem, so that they have a new place as like an entrepreneur that they can be, feel safe in, and will have provided them with, or if not mentorship, then the ability to move through like us as helpers and conduits and guides, I guess I should say, to where they can have a sounding board of support and advice.
I like it. I love it. That will have been the most valuable elevator ride that they've ever experienced. Destanē, thank you so much for joining us today. And to our listeners who are entrepreneurs, please be sure to connect with Destanē on LinkedIn, learn more about the Wond'ry, and all the links will be provided. But thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing those tips and advice for those entrepreneurs out there, especially the ones that are in the science space and providing that amazing innovation to our world. And don't forget, everyone, to get stuff done. Have a great one. Thank you for listening to the GSD Factor podcast. I'm your host, Misha Blaymeyer-Farish. Be sure to connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram, as I love connecting with our listeners to hear how you are getting shit done in your personal and professional life. Be sure to visit our website at gsdfactor.com, where you can take a persona assessment that's going to help you figure out what type of GSDer you are. There's also a ton of resources and tools for both yourself and your tiny humans in your life. We appreciate you rating and subscribing our podcast episode today. And don't forget to get stuff done.